Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here at 4:30 today. The race for Wisconsin governor is still in its infancy. Heck, the primary election is a year from August. The general election set for November of 2026. Today, Democratic candidate Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez making her first public appearance since entering the race. She was in Sheboygan. But it is her entrance still generating questions. A slick campaign video launched last Friday, less than 24 hours after Governor Evers announced he would not be seeking a third term. Those raising questions about how much advance notice she received.
So the idea that there was, from what you said, something already done the day before or whatever, got to ask her why that happened.
Can you just walk through the timeline of everything for people who may have questions?
So Governor Evers was clear. I was given notice that he was going to resign at the same time that the cabinet members were, which was the day that he resigned. And so that's kind of all I'm willing to say about that timeline.
Rodriguez, one of two Democrats and four candidates publicly announcing they're going to run in the race. Let's break down that race, these busy first 5 days. And we welcome in J.R. Ross, of course, the editor of WisPolitics.com. So, J.R., how has this been received, all the governor talk in the last couple of days in Madison? How is this shaking out there?
We're in kind of like the early feeling out stage. Obviously, Lieutenant Governor Rodriguez was quick to announce that she's in the race. David Crowley, Milwaukee County Executive, said he's basically all but in. He's making moves in coming weeks to get in. There's going to be some kind of sifting and winnowing here in the coming weeks. There's not a rush, but you kind of want to get things rolling sooner rather than later. So we're on watch for Josh Kaul, the Attorney General, Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson, State Senator Kelly Royce, and others to see, are they going to pull the trigger? Then it becomes a question of what is your lane? That's a phrase in politics, what your lane is. That means who is your base? Who is going to be your constituency in this primary? Because look, everybody's a little bit different. You know, they're all Democrats, obviously, but they have different views on things. They've got different people who support them. So who's going to have the backing of labor? Who's going to have the backing of those who support abortion rights? So you go on down the list of priorities for Democrats. It'll be interesting how it shakes out and where those groups line up behind these contenders.
All right, and we'll talk about primaries in just a second, but let's talk about the environment for Democrats right now. Do you think this is the most challenging they've had going into a statewide election based on recent events here? Polling suggests the party 60% unfavorable in the state of Wisconsin. New party leadership, we know, Devin Remaker is now in charge, so will the fundraising look like it has in the past under Ben Wickler? But on the other hand, the party's been on a heater on statewide elections. If you take out the president's race, I mean, Ron Johnson won, but it was a very slim margin. So how are Democrats feeling about their chances given this environment?
Another question is, does the environment next November cure all that ails you? So what I mean by that is traditionally, and you know, there's no guarantee, but traditionally, the power and party of the White House struggles in midterm elections.
Right.
Now, it's a long time between now and next November, but look at President Trump's job approval ratings. They're not very good. I saw a poll a few days ago that had who's motivated to vote in 2026. Democrats had a significant advantage in that regard. Now, Democrats have issues. Besides the things you mentioned, they have a problem with their image of their own party. There are people in the Democrat Party who are unhappy with their leadership. They're not aggressive in fighting against Trump. There are all kinds of ways it can be split. So what I'm watching is, how does the economy progress the next year? How does President Trump do in managing the various things that are out front there for the country? I mean, there are all kinds of things that could shape this election, but if passes prologue, Democrats should have a pretty good environment as a foundation for next year. The question is, who's going to be the nominee? How does he or she fit with what the voters are looking for? What's the money look like? Don't forget the problem Republicans have. The state party has not shown yet it can raise money in a meaningful way to match what Ben Wickler was doing. Will they be able to catch up with Devin Remaker? Maybe. But they have institutional problems over there. We're expecting a report any day now from the state GOP laying out, hey, here are our problems in spring elections. I'm not expecting surprises out of that, but they know they've got an issue that they have fixed. So both parties have challenges. I'm just wondering, does the dynamic with Donald Trump in the White House drive everything, the entire conversation next year? People like Tom Tiffany, for example, who are thinking about running for governor, they want to hook their wagon to Donald Trump, turn out Trump voters. It's going to be fascinating to watch how this dynamic plays out, the environment that develops the next year, and how that dictates the terms of our race for governor.
JR, Senator Ron Johnson, as you know, came out and said he thinks the GOP shouldn't have a primary. Just find who you think your best candidate. Don't get messy. Don't get expensive. Focus on November. On the flip side of that, Tony Evers says he does support a Democratic primary, although he's not going to endorse a candidate. Do you think Ron Johnson's idea will hold water with the GOP?
Well, try and convince any of the guys who are in to give up. Like, that's always a challenge, right? To get somebody who's invested money and time to say, yeah, you're right. I just can't cut it. I don't have time to make up the gap. That's a challenge. You know, primaries, it depends. You know, go back to 2018. Tony Evers is in a multi-candidate primary. Nobody really raised a whole lot of money in that race back in 2018. I mean, like a dominant amount of money. And it sharpened Tony Evers. It made him more well-known and got him prepared to take on Scott Walker, and he won. Go back to 2022, however. Republicans had a primary that came out battered and bruised and broke, part because Tim Michels, remember, said he's going to basically fund his race for the nomination, but wasn't then going to fund the entire race for the general election. So there's a money issue there. Also, there were some splits in the Republican Party after that primary. It wasn't very pleasant between Michels and Rebecca Clayfish. So, you know, how does this one play out? That's the question. Are they end up on nice terms? Is there tension? That can really dictate what a primary does for you, you know, in terms of general election.
All right, you mentioned money there quite a few times. So when do you start paying attention and reading the tea leaves in these fundraising reports? Obviously, the last one is obsolete. It was done before any of this happened at the end of last week. So when do you start reading the tea leaves in those finance reports, and what do they tell you?
We're not going to get anything from state candidates until January, I believe. That'll be our first look at the fundraising in the second half of the year. No elections this fall, so no reporting deadlines, if I remember correctly. The federal reports, we'll get a little hint of how the state parties are doing. They file a monthly report, so we can kind of see if Devin Remiker is keeping pace where Ben Wickler was. Now, that federal money can't be used on state races. Keep that in mind. We will see quarterly reports from the congressional candidates like Derek Van Orden out in third, Brian Stile and their challengers. But you know, we'll get a clear picture until really early next year what's going on. Then you'll have a sprint from January to August, that primary next year for these nominations.
Terrific. JR, thanks as always for the time and the insight. We always appreciate it.
Anytime.